The theater was packed that night. The lights dimmed, the restless whispers faded, and a hush spread across the crowd. In the middle of the stage stood a young man who looked nothing like the stars people usually came to see. His shoes were worn, his shirt slightly faded, and his hands trembled as they clutched the microphone. His name was Daniel Carter, a 19-year-old who had grown up in one of the toughest neighborhoods in Chicago. He wasn't famous, he wasn't wealthy, and he certainly didn't look like someone about to change the lives of everyone sitting in that room. But there was something in his eyes, something unshakable, something deeply human, that captured attention before he even spoke a single word. The judges at the talent show exchanged skeptical glances. One of them leaned forward and whispered, "He looks nervous, I don't know if he's ready for this." Daniel swallowed hard. The crowd waited. The lights above him felt hot, almost unbearable. For a moment, he thought about running off the stage, about vanishing back into the shadows where no one could judge him. But then he remembered why he was there. He wasn't singing for fame. He wasn't singing for applause. He was singing for his mother. Just 2 years earlier, Daniel's mother, a hard-working single parent, had been diagnosed with a rare illness. The treatments were expensive, the bills overwhelming. She had worked double shifts at a diner just to keep food on the table, yet somehow she always managed to smile when she came home. One evening, as Daniel sat beside her hospital bed, she had whispered, "Promise me, Danny, promise me you'll never stop using your voice. You have a gift. Don't hide it, even when the world tries to silence you." Those words burned inside him now, echoing louder than the noise of the audience. And so, despite the fear in his chest, he closed his eyes, and began to sing. The first note was shaky, fragile, almost uncertain. But as the melody grew, so did his courage. His voice rose, clear, soulful, and filled with raw emotion that seemed to come from a place far deeper than the stage. It wasn't polished, it wasn't perfect, but it was real, and in that moment, the room changed. The judges leaned back, their skepticism replaced with wide-eyed astonishment. The crowd went silent, as though every heart in the room had synchronized to the rhythm of his song. Some people leaned forward, unable to look away. Others blinked back tears, surprised by how quickly his voice reached the tender places they kept hidden. Daniel wasn't just singing notes. He was telling a story, his story. A story of struggle, of love, of a boy carrying the weight of his mother's dreams. As his song unfolded, memories flooded his mind. He remembered standing outside the diner late at night, waiting for his mom to finish her shift so they could walk home together. He remembered how she used to hum lullabies while cooking, her tired voice still filled with warmth. And he remembered the day she first collapsed, how he had held her trembling hands and promised her that everything would be okay, even though he had no idea how. The lyrics poured out of him like confessions he had never spoken aloud. The audience felt it. They didn't just hear him, they lived his pain, his hope, his unshakable love. By the time the final note rang through the theater, something extraordinary had happened. The crowd rose to their feet in thunderous applause. Strangers wiped tears from their cheeks. The judges clapped, their eyes glistening. But Daniel didn't notice any of it. All he could see, in his mind's eye, was his mother's face, her smile, her courage, her words. And though she wasn't in the room, though her hospital bed was miles away, Daniel felt as if she were standing right beside him, whispering again, "That's my boy, that's the voice they'll never forget." For the next several days, Daniel's performance spread like wildfire. Clips of his audition flooded social media. Strangers shared his song with captions like, "This gave me chills," and, "A voice you'll never forget." Within a week, millions had watched him pour his heart out on that stage. But while the world saw a young man stepping into stardom, Daniel lived a very different reality. Every night after rehearsals, he would rush to the hospital, sitting beside his mother as machines beeped steadily around her bed. He held her hand, humming softly, sometimes replaying recordings of his performance to make her smile. "Danny," she whispered one evening, her voice weak but filled with pride, "they're finally hearing you. The whole world is hearing you." He squeezed her hand gently. "Mom, none of this matters without you. I don't care about fame. I just want you to get better." She smiled faintly. "Getting better isn't always in our control. But what you do with your gift, that's in yours." Those words stuck to his heart like glue. The competition moved forward, and Daniel advanced to the semifinals. His confidence grew, but so did his burden. His mother's condition worsened. Some days, she was too weak to even open her eyes. On those nights, Daniel would sit alone in the hospital chapel, staring at the flickering candles, whispering prayers he wasn't even sure anyone was listening to. One evening, as he sat in silence, an older man in a janitor's uniform entered the chapel. He noticed Daniel's slumped shoulders and tear-streaked face. "You look like someone carrying the weight of the world," the man said softly. Daniel wiped his eyes, embarrassed. "It's nothing. Just life." The janitor gave a knowing smile. "Life's heavy, son, but it gets lighter when you share it." Daniel hesitated, then found himself telling the stranger everything: the illness, the performances, the fear of losing his mother. He expected the man to offer clichés or empty comfort, but instead, the janitor simply nodded and said, "Sing for her. Every chance you get. Don't just sing on that stage. Sing here, sing to her, sing to the world. Sometimes the right song does more healing than the strongest medicine." It was such a simple thought, yet it pierced Daniel's heart. The next day, instead of rehearsing alone in the studio, Daniel brought his guitar to the hospital. Sitting by his mother's bedside, he began to sing the same song he had performed at the audition. Her eyelids fluttered open, and for the first time in days, she smiled. "You kept your promise," she whispered, tears gathering in her tired eyes. From that day forward, music became their medicine. Every evening, he sang for her, and though the illness didn't fade, the room filled with a peace and warmth that no machine could provide. Nurses would pause in the hallway to listen. Other patients would shuffle to the doorway, drawn by the sound. Soon, his mother's hospital room became a sanctuary where pain seemed to soften beneath the power of song. But the journey wasn't without sacrifice. On the night of the semifinals, his mother's condition took a critical turn. Daniel faced an impossible choice: stay by her side or step onto the stage where the nation was waiting for him. He sat by her bed, torn apart, whispering, "Mom, I can't leave you like this." She touched his hand weakly. "Danny, you have to go. Not for you, not for me, for everyone who needs to hear what love sounds like. Promise me you'll sing tonight." His heart ached, but he knew she was right. With a heavy spirit, he left the hospital and rushed to the theater, arriving just minutes before his name was called. When he stepped onto the stage, the audience cheered, but Daniel felt hollow inside. He took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and imagined his mother's face. And then, he sang. This time, his voice carried not just emotion, but urgency, as if each note was a prayer, each lyric a plea for hope. The crowd felt it instantly. Some leaned forward, clutching their hearts. Others openly wept. By the time he finished, there was silence. Not a restless silence, but the kind that comes when thousands of people are too moved to even clap right away. Then, like a wave, the applause rose, thunderous, unstoppable. The judges stood to their feet. One of them whispered into the mic, "That is a voice you'll never forget." Daniel bowed his head, tears streaming down his face. He wasn't sure if he had won the round. He wasn't even sure if it mattered. What mattered was that, somewhere across town, his mother might still be listening. And in that moment, he realized, this was bigger than a competition. This was about carrying her spirit, her dreams, her love into every corner of the world. The morning after the semifinals, Daniel rushed back to the hospital. His heart raced with fear of what he might find. As he entered the room, his mother was awake, her frail hand resting on the blanket. "I heard you," she whispered with a smile. "I couldn't see the stage, but I felt every note. You sang like the whole world was listening." Tears filled his eyes. "I was singing for you, Mom. Always for you." She nodded weakly. "And now, you'll sing for them too, for everyone who needs hope." That was the last conversation they shared. That night, she slipped away peacefully, with his voice still echoing in her heart. Daniel was shattered. For days, he thought of leaving the competition altogether. But then he remembered her words. "Don't hide it, Danny. The world needs your voice." At the finals, he walked on stage with a quiet strength. When the music began, he sang not just as a contestant, but as a son keeping a promise. His voice soared, pure, honest, overflowing with love. By the end, the entire auditorium was on its feet, some with hands over their hearts, others with tears in their eyes. He didn't just win the competition. He won something far greater. Daniel's story spread beyond the stage. People from around the world shared how his voice had given them courage in their darkest moments, how it reminded them of love, sacrifice, and the beauty of holding on. And though his mother was gone, her dream lived on in every song he sang. Because sometimes, a voice isn't just sound. Sometimes, It's a reminder of love that never dies. Sometimes, it's a voice you'll never forget.